The world lies before us like an unrolled scroll, a book waiting to be read. And yet, for so many, it remains unreadable. Not because the words are illegible, and not because we lack the intelligence, but because we have become saltless. Rather than bringing flavor and meaning to the world, we find ourselves pointing to emptiness. This is a truth the preacher came to know through much reflection, and it carries a certain sadness with it. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 11. It's heartbreaking that we were made for a world full of meaning, yet we are busy gathering evidence and forsaking the substance. We've become so occupied with proofs, signs, arguments, experiences, and external tokens that we miss the living reality they were meant to lead us to. This is precisely what happened many times in Scripture. The religious leaders demanded evidence, more signs, more miracles, more credentials, while standing before the very substance to whom all those signs pointed. Likewise, one can become so fascinated by creation that one forgets the Creator. Evidence is meant to be read, not worshipped. God has made this world truly beautiful, filled with deep purpose, but apart from Him, we cannot uncover that meaning. We only reveal how saltless we have become, and we feel the lack more than we care to admit. The harp and the strings, the tambourine and flute, and wine are at their feasts, but they do not regard the work of the Lord, nor consider the work of His hands. Therefore my people have gone into exile, because they have no knowledge. Their honored men are starving, and their masses are parched with thirst. Isaiah 5 verses 12 to 13. And yet, even in that thirst, there is a quiet mercy. The ache itself is a sign that we were made for more. The emptiness we feel is not rejection. It is an invitation to draw us back to the one who holds it all. Before it meant scanning text, reading meant to make sense of something, to interpret its meaning, and even to perceive what it is telling you. It was to look at a spread of external signs, weigh them internally, and counsel your soul on what they meant. It was an act of existential interpretation. That older sense still appears in phrases like read the signs, read the room, read someone's face, or even read the situation. The eye is like the faculty by which we read the world. Two people can look at the same event. One reads it through trust and gratitude. Another reads it through fear and envy. The outward scene may be identical, but the inner reading changes the whole body, that is, the whole person. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? Matthew 6 verse 22-23. Jesus contrasts two types of eyes, which completely changes how we interpret our lives. The Greek term used for single is hapless. It meant sound, whole, or undivided. A single eye is an eye that is clear because it is focused on one truth. The opposite is paneros, translated as bad or evil. It doesn't merely mean morally wicked. It also carries the sense of corrupted, diseased, harmful, full of toil or misery. Such an eye does not see clearly because its perception has become distorted. Paneros is related to ponos, meaning toil, labor, hardship, pain. Something paneros is something that causes pain, damage, misery, or ruin, or is marked by such a condition. A paneros eye is not necessarily a medically impaired eye. It is an eye whose way of seeing has become troubled and harmful. It turns what it sees into darkness. In Genesis 2, Adam and Eve begin in a state of absolute transparency. The chapter ends with a striking detail. The man and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. Genesis 2, verse 25. This is an exemplary picture of the single, hapless eye. They are completely without folds. They had no secrets, no hidden agendas, and no self-protective layers between them and God, or between each other. They did not yet read creation as a threat, until the serpent changed the way they read. The serpent's strategy was subtle because he did not first appear as sinister. He came with duplicity, that is, a folded message, and used words that sounded like a friendly, intellectual exploration of God's rules. Adam and Eve lowered their guard because they read the serpent not as a lethal threat, but simply as another part of the beautiful, abundant landscape, a creature offering an interesting thought. And they treated him with open-handed generosity. And because they read him as a friend, they allowed his words to bypass their defenses entirely. The serpent did not need them to become openly rebellious. He only needed them to hearken to another voice other than God's, and they listened. The fall began before the fruit touched their lips. It began the moment they believed another voice above God's. They ate the fruit because they had already chosen another way. The woman was convinced. She saw that the tree was beautiful and its fruit looked delicious, and she wanted the wisdom it would give her. So she took some of the fruit and ate it. Then she gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it, too. At that moment their eyes were opened, and they suddenly felt shame at their nakedness. So they sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves. Genesis 3 verse 6-7. That eye-opening moment wasn't a miracle. It was the beginning of Paneros. What was once a beautiful creation started becoming fractured. Though they did gain knowledge of good and evil, they lost the light that gives the ability to read creation and know the Creator. They got their knowledge, but it cost them their clarity. For although they knew God, they neither glorified Him as God nor gave thanks to Him. But their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. Romans 1 verse 21. At its root, thanks is connected to thinking. So originally, to give thanks was not merely to say polite words. It was to hold something in mind, to remember a good received, and to respond with goodwill. Glory, on the other hand, while we often use it today to describe majestic beauty or celestial splendor, it wasn't a passive visual spectacle. It was something audible. It was the literal shouting of a person's name by a crowd or an army after a victory. It meant reputation by hearsay, public acclaim, and spoken praise. Glory is greatness that is recognized, spoken of, and publicly acknowledged. To glorify someone is to give their true worth a voice. God doesn't ask for glory because He is hungry for praise. He asks for it because we are hungry for life. He knows that the moment we look away from Him and try to become our own bosses, our minds will get confused, our hearts will get scared, and we will start misreading everything around us. Keeping Him at the center isn't a chore we do for Him. It's the only way we stay alive, free, and full of light. Our words are never neutral. Every time we open our mouths, we are acting like a public herald. We are assigning weight, value, and position to something. We are literally glorifying whatever we choose to talk about. We are handing out trophies of importance to whatever we talk about the most, and glorifying it by making it heavy in our minds. Then those who feared the Lord spoke with each other, and the Lord listened to what they said. In His presence, a scroll of remembrance was written to record the names of those who feared Him and always thought about the honor of His name. Malachi 3 verse 16. When we say, words create worlds, it usually implies a simple, everyday truth. The things we say completely change how we see, feel, and build our reality. Think of words not just as labels, but as tools. Words shape our inner world. The specific words you use to describe your life change how your brain processes it. If you wake up and say, "Today is going to be an absolute nightmare," you've just built a mental world full of stress and anxiety. Your brain actively looks for things to validate that statement. If you frame the exact same day as, "Today is going to be a beautiful challenge," you've built a completely different inner world, one where you are a person capable of overcoming a test. The vocabulary we use acts like a lens. Change the lens, and the whole picture changes. Words also build our social world, that is, our relationships. Every time you speak to someone, you are constructing the environment between you. Saying words like, "I'm sorry, I messed up," creates a world of trust, humility, and healing, while saying words like, "Well, you made me do it," creates a world of defensiveness, anger, and division. With just a few words, you can completely alter the atmosphere of a room, a marriage, or a friendship. You are essentially building the rules of that relationship using your words. Words do more than describe the world as it is. They also help us imagine, communicate, and eventually create things that are not yet reality. An idea may begin silently in someone's mind, but it becomes shareable and buildable when it is given a name, and put into words. Words give people something they can discuss, develop, organize around, and bring into reality. For example, before people had a word like internet, they could not easily speak about that particular kind of worldwide digital connection as one thing. Naming it helped people recognize it, explain it, improve it, and make it part of everyday life. In the same way, a writer's words can create an imagined world in the reader's mind. People, places, emotions, and events that feel real even though they are not physically present. Words are like bricks. Every time you speak, write, or think, you are laying down bricks to build a house. The question is, what kind of world are you building with yours? By the word of the Lord were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. Psalms 33 verse 6. Moreover, when we look at what Jesus said in Matthew 12 verse 34-37 about the mouth speaking from the abundance of the heart, he was describing a very simple psychological law. Your mouth is the exhaust pipe. Your heart is the engine. You can only pour out what you fill up on. You cannot pour water into a cup indefinitely without it eventually spilling over the sides. Your heart works in the same way. If you constantly fill your mind and heart with frustration, criticism, fear, or gossip, that reservoir fills up. Eventually, it gets full to the brim. The moment someone bumps into you, meaning the moment you get stressed, tired, or angry, whatever is sloshing around inside you is what's going to spill out of your mouth. You don't accidentally speak words of anger. Those words were already melted down and manufactured in your heart long before they hit your tongue. And just like a reservoir doesn't become full all at once, but it is filled by countless small streams over time, the same is true of the heart. Very few people become bitter in a single day. More often, bitterness is the result of repeatedly dwelling on offenses. Fear grows by repeatedly entertaining fearful thoughts. Gossip becomes natural by repeatedly feeding on other people's failures. The heart is continually being filled by what we repeatedly attend to. Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Proverbs 4 verse 23. Notice that Solomon doesn't say, hide your heart. He says, guard it. A guarded heart is not a closed heart. It is a heart that exercises discernment about what it allows to take root. A guarded city still has gates. People and goods come in and go out. The gates aren't closed forever, they're watched carefully. Likewise, guarding your heart isn't withdrawing from the world. It's being discerning about what you allow to take root. Furthermore, words act as forensics, the evidence of one's identity. The passage in Matthew 12 verse 37 goes on to say that, by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Think of your words like the fingerprints left behind at a crime scene. A fingerprint doesn't make you guilty or innocent. It simply provides undeniable evidence of where you have been and what you have touched. Your words do the exact same thing for your character. They are the visible, audible evidence of your invisible, internal world. The things you say when you are angry, tired, or caught off guard show the true state of your heart. You can practice being patient and kind on the outside, but the casual, unguarded words that slip out of your mouth reveal exactly what is being manufactured in the dark. You cannot permanently fix your words just by trying to watch your mouth. That is like wiping water off the floor while the pipe is still leaking. To change the worlds you are creating with your words, you have to go deeper and change the raw materials you are feeding into your heart. Paul is a classic case study for this. Before his encounter on the road to Damascus, he was the gold standard of religious practice. He later wrote that under the law, he was blameless, Philippians 3 verse 6. But was his heart guarded? Not at all. He was so utterly lacking in self-awareness that he thought murdering and arresting people who disagreed with the Mosaic law was an act of service to God. His practice had made him rigid, violent, and self-righteous. It was only after his conversion that true self-awareness kicked in. When he finally looked into his inner being through the lens of grace, his vocabulary completely flipped. The man who once called himself blameless wrote, Christ Jesus came into the world to save sinners, of whom I am chief. 1 Timothy 1 verse 15. He proved that when you change the words you live by, you inevitably change the world you leave behind. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure brings forth evil things. But I say to you that for every idle word men may speak, they will give account of it in the day of judgment. Matthew 12, verse 35-36. In addition, the word used for careless or idle in the original Greek is argon, which literally means unworking, barren, or useless. It refers to words that produce no good fruit, or worse, words that tear down. A tree can be argos in the sense that it produces no fruit. Faith can be argos if it produces no works. Speech can be argos because it fails to build up, reveal truth, or glorify God. So idle is not simply empty chatter. It is speech that is devoid of God's intended purpose. Paul's mouth was once a factory of argon words. The book of Acts describes him as breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord, Acts 9, verse 1. He was using his vocabulary to issue warrants, condemn innocent people, and demand the execution of believers. His words were the audible overflow of a heart filled with pride, blind rage, and self-righteousness. And without realizing, he was speaking his own condemnation into existence, because every time he opened his mouth, he was providing the spiritual courtroom the exact evidence needed to convict him. He was acting as his own prosecuting witness. Yet if Matthew 12, verse 36 was the final, rigid legal rule, Paul would have been completely ruined by his past vocabulary. But instead, his life becomes a living testimony of how the gospel handles our careless words. His past ledger of destructive speech isn't just ignored, it is paid for and wiped clean by grace. This is why Paul is so profoundly obsessed with the concept of grace and justification. He knew better than anyone what it felt like to be guilty by his own testimony, only to be completely acquitted. He didn't just stop saying idle words. He allowed God's word to transform his heart and produce the exact opposite. Thus, his words became highly working, deeply fruitful, and life-giving. We are the only creation on earth given an intricate, abstract vocabulary. Why? Because we are created in God's image and likeness. We were designed to imitate his creative process. We may not create physical matter out of speech like he does, but we do create the relational, emotional, and cultural worlds we inhabit using the exact same tool he used, the spoken word. However, the human heart is like an ancient city with decades of deeply grooved neural pathways, default defense mechanisms, and old vocabulary patterns. You can't just snap your fingers and remodel it overnight. Because it takes time, the way we think about this journey matters deeply. It requires a specific kind of patience with ourselves. The fact that it takes time is not a design flaw. It is a mercy. It allows us to lean into the patience and grace of the author. He isn't rushing the manuscript of your life. He is a master builder who is perfectly content to lay one brick at a time, knowing exactly what the finished house will look like. Your eyes saw my substance, being yet unformed. And in your book they all were written, the days fashioned for me, when as yet there were none of them. Psalms 139, verse 16. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1. At its deepest root, time is a cut, a slicing of eternity into measurable pieces. Eternity is the uncut, unbroken fabric of absolute reality. In order to give us an environment where free will can operate safely, God took eternity and sliced it up into digestible segments. Time is a series of these distinct segments. It introduces a lag between a spoken word, rhema, and its account, logos. If every action carried its full spiritual consequence, even an idle word would immediately bear its fruit. But God, in his mercy, gave us time, a protective boundary that slows the full execution of spiritual realities, giving us room to breathe, choose, grow, learn, and repent. Like a loving parent who sends a child to their room, not to destroy them, but to give them space to think, reflect, and return with understanding, God sent Adam and Eve out of Eden into a world of time. Their exile was both judgment and mercy. Eden was lost, but time was given. Time is not merely something we spend. It is one of God's greatest gifts. It is the space where mercy speaks, grace teaches, repentance is possible, and salvation unfolds. Before eternity, God gave us time. God isn't late with his promise as some measure lateness. He is restraining himself on account of you, holding back the end because he doesn't want anyone lost. He's giving everyone space and time to change. 2 Peter 3 verse 9. Time gives us room to read creation. It is the space in which meaning can be received, processed, and absorbed without being overwhelmed. Creation is not mute. It speaks, but it speaks in a language that requires time to learn. You cannot read a forest in a second, nor a galaxy in a minute. You must dwell in it. If creation is a text, then reading it is an act of reverence and discovery. You are not imposing your own meaning onto nature. You are receiving the meaning that was written into it from the beginning. Picture an ancient scroll tightly rolled around a wooden spindle. When you want to read it, you don't stare at the outside of the scroll. You take the edge and you unroll it. You pull it open. You evolve it. And as you do, the hidden words are gradually revealed, line by line, sentence by sentence. The meaning does not appear all at once. It emerges as the roll turns. Consequently, when Christ came into the world, he said, "Sacrifices and offerings you have not desired, but a body have you prepared for me. In burnt offerings and sin offerings you have taken no pleasure." Then I said, "Behold, I have come to do your will, O God, as it is written of me in the scroll of the book." Hebrews 10 verse 5-7. Jesus was the living, unrolling of God's eternal word. What had been written in the scrolls, whispered through creation, and promised throughout prophecy became visible in him. He didn't add a new meaning. He unfolded the meaning that had always been there. Today, to evolve is mostly considered biological and progressive. It represents a blank canvas. There is no pre-existing text. Life adapts, reacts, and self-authors in real time. You are entirely free to write your own story because the universe is an open-ended process. The ancient view, on the contrary, feels like a coloring book where the lines are already drawn. If the scroll is already written, your path is fixed. It feels like confinement. That is a completely logical argument. But if we stress test both concepts against human experience, a fascinating paradox emerges. The modern view can actually become a prison, while the ancient view offers genuine liberation. If there is no pre-carved foundation, you are entirely at the mercy of external forces. You aren't responding to a purposeful design. You are constantly reacting to the chaotic shifts of the environment, culture, and external pressures. If life is a completely unwritten script, then you carry the crushing burden of having to invent your own worth, your own identity, and your own meaning out of nothing. If you fail to write a good story, the failure is entirely on you. You become a wandering text with no context. Because he already knew who he was, time became the unfolding of Jesus' identity, not the construction of it. That's a very different way of living. Time wasn't a countdown to discover himself. Jesus didn't spend his lifetime trying to become the Son of God. He was the Son of God. His time on earth was the beautiful unfolding of that eternal reality in human history. Thus, Jesus was the freest person who ever lived because he never had to become someone he wasn't. He didn't spend his life searching for his identity or trying to create his own meaning. He simply lived out the life the Father had given him, in perfect communion with the Father. Subsequently, he unfolded the fullness of who he truly was. While the world was constantly reacting to changing circumstances, Jesus remained rooted in the unchanging love and will of the Father. Nonetheless, knowing exactly who he was meant knowing precisely what was written in the scroll about him. For you and me, the future is hidden. We don't know the day or the manner of our death, which protects us from a lifetime of dread. But Jesus knew the script. He knew from the beginning of his ministry that his path led directly to a brutal execution. Furthermore, seeing creation without distortion meant Jesus felt the tragedy of sin far more deeply than we do. When we look at a broken world, our vision is numb to it because we've grown up in the dark. But because Jesus saw the Father's handwriting perfectly, he saw exactly how far humanity had fallen from the original design. Yet Jesus never appears rushed. That tells us something profound about how he saw time. Because he was in perfect communion with the Father, he didn't just rush through a checklist to get to the cross. He had an incredible capacity to pause, linger, and read between God's works in real time. For us, time feels like a scarce commodity we have to aggressively hoard or defend. But because Jesus was anchored to the eternal foundation, he treated time like an abundant resource. He had time to sit by a well and talk theology with a Samaritan woman. He had time to cook breakfast on a beach for his grieving friends after the resurrection. By knowing the script perfectly, he was entirely freed from the anxiety of the unknown. He didn't have to panic about the future, which allowed him to be 100% present in the now. And when he says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest," Matthew 11 verse 28, he is inviting us out of our frantic, distorted hurry and into that exact same rhythm, where we finally have the time to slow down, look around, and read the beautiful things the Father has written into our own days. To read between the lines is to understand what is being said, but not directly stated. But to read between the works shifts the focus. It isn't just about words, but about deeds, actions, creations. It is about looking beyond the works themselves to discover what they reveal about their source. See the works and perceive the worker, not merely see the works and admire them. Creation is like a written text, but it is not the final message. But now ask the beasts, and they will teach you, and the birds of the air, and they will tell you, or speak to the earth, and it will teach you, and the fish of the sea will explain to you. Who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this, in whose hand is the life of every living thing, and the breath of all mankind? Does not the ear test words, and the mouth taste its food? Job 12 verse 7-11. Reading isn't passive observation. It involves actively seeking the meaning of something. In that sense, reading something is a bit like testing it. That is, examining it to discover what it truly is, and tasting it. That is, experiencing it for yourself rather than merely looking at it. This is why we can read things that are not texts. A person's character, the weather, the room, etc. In each case, you are discerning what lies beneath the surface. Reading begins with faith that there is meaning. Understanding is the fruit of that faith. To read is to trust that what appears as mere symbols is carrying a reality worth discovering. The thought is that some truths are not understood first and then trusted. Rather, trust opens the door to deeper understanding. And in this sense, reading is more than seeing, it is an act of reception. You approach something believing that it can be understood even before you fully understand it. Creation is not hidden, it is not obscure, it is not ambiguous. This is why reading between the works is not a luxury, but it is a responsibility. We are held accountable for what we see, for it is sufficient to lead us to the truth. Which is why Romans 1 verse 20 states that they are without excuse. The Greek term used for excuse in that verse is anapologitos. It literally means without defense or having no apology to offer. So in essence, we have no defense, not because God is hidden, but because he is too apparent. If God's existence could be proven by logic alone, then faith would not be faith, it would be mere conclusion. But God doesn't just want us to simply conclude that he exists, he wants us to know him. He wants a relationship, not a partnership. So he has left us enough evidence to make us responsible, but not as much that we are compelled. The evidence is clear enough to condemn those who reject it, but profound enough to keep hearts humble, open, and seeking. However, it is written, "For the hearts of this people have grown dull. Their ears are hard of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should heal them." Acts 28 verse 27. A person can see miracles, but not perceive their significance. Hear the truth, but not receive its meaning. Read the works, but not discern what they point to. The heart can be either open or closed to meaning. Faith is what enables us to read creation as creation rather than objects. Without faith, we can look at the works of God, study them, learn from them, but never actually know them, because creation derives its meaning from its creator. Faith is not the opposite of reading, it is part of true reading. Without a receptive heart, the eyes see symbols and the ears hear sounds, but the meaning remains hidden. Without faith, it is not only impossible to truly know God, it is impossible to truly know his creation, and that includes us. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11 verse 1. It's easy to see how Jesus unrolls the scroll because he has absolute clarity. But for us, stepping into tomorrow often feels like walking into a heavy fog. How do you gracefully unfold a divine manuscript when you can't see the next sentence? Think about how a scroll functions physically compared to a modern book. A scroll forces you into a singular, continuous journey. You cannot skip ahead without physically unrolling all the parchment in between. To get to chapter 10, you must pass through chapters 1 through 9. It respects the process of time. You are forced to live in the text that is currently open before you. A book, on the other hand, breaks the text into isolated, stacked pages. Because it has a spine, it allows for random access. You can look at the table of contents, shove your thumb into the middle, flip to the final page, read the ending, and then jump back to the beginning. A book gives the reader an illusion of total spatial control. You hold the entire narrative in your hand and can manipulate time with a flick of your wrist. When we look at our lives today, we tend to treat life like a modern book rather than a scroll. We have a codex mentality. Because the future is hidden from us, we constantly try to flip ahead in our minds. We want to skip the messy, slow, unrolling chapters of waiting, healing, or learning, and jump straight to the resolution. We peek at the back of the book to see if things turn out okay. But life cannot be read like a book where you passively scan pages you have complete control over. It should be read like an active counsel. You are an interpreter, not just a consumer. Reading life means looking at the column of reality open before you today and discerning the intent behind it. You cannot skip ahead in life to know now whether a relationship will last, whether a decision will succeed, or what will happen years from today. Life is more like a scroll. The future is not available for us to inspect whenever we want. It unfolds little by little. When we demand to know tomorrow before it arrives, we create inner tension. We feel anxious because we want control over a future that is not yet available to us. But perhaps the hidden future is also a gift. It keeps us honest about what we do and do not know. It protects us from carrying the weight of tomorrow before we have the strength, wisdom, or context to bear it. For now, we are given the part of the story we need to read and live today. Biologically and textually, books are objectively better technology than scrolls. They democratized information and are a triumph of human utility. However, the scroll is a mirror of divine patience. We use books to master information, but we must submit to the scroll of time to master our character. You don't have to manage 300 pages at once. The Logos delivers reality to you in a single, perfectly framed column. Your only job is to read the ink that is currently wet, trusting that the parchment yet to be unrolled is held by the same hands that carved the foundation. Give your entire attention to what God is doing right now, and don't get worked up about what may or may not happen tomorrow. God will help you deal with whatever hard things come up when the time comes. Matthew 6, verse 34. From the perspective of the author, the story is completely finished, but from the perspective of the timeline, it is being freshly inked. God exists out of time. He sees the beginning, middle, and end in one simultaneous now. The blueprint is totally complete, but we live trapped inside the sequence of time. For the blueprint to become a physical reality in our world, it has to be pinned into the timeline moment by moment. Our stories aren't random mutations or a guess. They are the physical manifestation of a pre-existing eternal reality being pressed into the dust of our time. The ink is wet to us, but the text is certain to him. For Jesus, knowing the story didn't dry the ink. It actually made it pulsate with life. Imagine a world-class composer who writes a complex, gorgeous symphony on paper. He knows every single note, every crescendo, and every rest perfectly. The score is entirely finished in his mind. But when that composer actually sits down at a grand piano and plays it live for the first time, is he just bored? Is he just going through the motions? No. When his fingers hit the keys, the music becomes alive. The physical exertion, the vibration of the strings, the resonance in the room, that is the wet ink. Jesus didn't just possess the information of the scroll, he came to physically exert it. He knew he was written to be the sacrificial lamb. But when the iron spikes actually pierced his hands, the theoretical script became a visceral, agonizing, bleeding reality. For Jesus, knowing the story didn't make it mechanical, it was played out loud in the dust. The design was eternal, but the execution was fiercely, beautifully alive in the present moment. When you treat your daily circumstances as a text to be read in the original sense, you stop asking the passive question, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking the active question, "What is this moment counseling me to become?" This shifts your relationship with reality from a monologue of external events into an intimate conversation with the author. If you face a sudden crisis, a setback, or even an unexpected moment of beauty, that event is the wet ink currently hitting your page. To read, it means you don't look outward at the panic of the world to find your cue. Instead, you look into the pre-carved bedrock of who God says you are. God's love is different. He deliberately keeps the future rolled up because he knows our fragile human frames cannot handle the weight of the whole manuscript at once. If you saw all the trials, or even all the immense glories of your chapter 20 while you were still struggling to survive chapter 2, it would paralyze you. Hiddenness isn't a lack of information. It is the protective pacing of a loving father. He says, "I know what I'm doing. I have it all planned out. Plans to take care of you, not abandon you. Plans to give you the future you hope for." Jeremiah 29 verse 11. He also says, "I still have many things to tell you, but you can't handle them now." John 16 verse 12. Right now, because of the distortion of sin and our linear limitations, we are looking at the backside of the parchment. We see ink bleeding through. We trace the outlines of the letters with our fingers in the dark. We are reading the riddle of our daily lives. But there is a profound comfort hidden in this metaphor. Ink only bleeds through if the pressure on the front is incredibly firm. The very fact that you feel the heavy, confusing, and sometimes painful weight of your current chapter means the author is not distant. He hasn't abandoned the manuscript. He is pressing down hard, engraving his character directly into the bedrock of your life. The stain you see from the back is the absolute guarantee that a glorious word is being written on the front. I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Psalms 27 verse 13. We are not random biological accidents. We are a creation made by God, for God, and in his image and likeness. We are his living spiritual love letter, and faith is what allows us to see that love beyond the letters. Moreover, because we are created in God's image and likeness, we too can write our own stories. Think of jazz improvisation. The composer writes the chord progression, the foundation. If the saxophone player just plays the exact written notes of the sheet music, it's not jazz, it's a recital. The composer wants the player to take the framework and blow an original solo that has never been heard in human history before. Your authorship is the solo. God provided the chords of truth, love, and identity. Now, he sets you in front of the microphone of history and says, "Play your melody. Show me what you can do with the breath I gave you." However, the best stories are not merely authentic. They are inspirational. They don't just animate character. They make their lives worth living and worth reading. The words we say, the thoughts we entertain, the beliefs we believe, the impressions pressed into us, and the expressions we express are slowly but surely writing our stories upon the foundational one that God has written. The question is, what kind of world is your story creating? And what do other people read when they encounter it? I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. Psalms 139 verse 14.